bit of a warning for my younger or more sensitive viewers. This video contains a lot of Toon Blood or Ichor and some not so nice depictions of your favorite characters. So click off if you're not ready for that today. What's up, fellas? My name is Muffin Thief, and I happen to be a fan of Dandy's World. I think it has a couple of decent horror elements at some points, but it doesn't always hit the mark for me though. I'm mostly talking about the Twisteds. Don't get me wrong, some of these Twisteds are actually quite unique and spooky, like Yada for example. I think our Twisted design is freaking amazing, and Glisten's is one of my favorites too. Sadly, not all these Twisteds look as cool as these guys. In fact, most of the Twisteds look like this. And this, which are just really mediocre designs. So, as an artist who loves drawing scary things, I wanted to put my own spin on some of these characters. In this video, you will see redesigns of Twisted Boxin, Twisted Toodles, Twisted Roger, and Twisted Pebble, all drawn by me, along with some of my opinions on their canon forms. I hope you guys enjoy because I actually injured my wrist during the making of this video. That's why it came out so late. How? I drew too much, and then I got carpal tunnel. I'm all better now, but yeah, I just thought I would mention that. I do want to say before we get into things though, please don't sprint to the comments saying, "This is a kid's game! This doesn't fit Danny's World at all!" Because I am aware of this, but this video is about what I would do with the Twisteds if Danny's World was my game. And I like scary monsters, not boring, slightly dirtier, and sadder versions of the tunes. Also, I'm not redesigning the Twisted's gameplay, even though a lot of them need it. I'm looking at you, Flutter. I will only be redesigning their visual looks and story, because I am not a game designer. Basically, consider this a bit like an AU. Alright, because Danny's World is only an alpha, we don't really fully understand how the mysterious substance that is Ichor works, so to keep the redesigns unique and consistent, I have thought up 4 rules or laws for Ichor in my universe. If you tuned in for last episode or you're an ungovernable rebel, go ahead and skip to this lovely timestamp. But if you want a refresher, or you're new here, don't do that and listen up for a bit. I'll make these quick. Yippee! Rule 1. Ichor is Toon Blood. This is proved in the game. Look, watch this. Boom, there it is. Splash of Ichor appears at the death of a toon. So yeah, just keep that in mind. I know this is kind of common knowledge, but I thought I would say it just in case y'all are not aware. Rule 2. Toons are immortal in my universe. So, when they are badly injured, instead of dying, they will mutate and become a Twisted. The Ichor will almost always mutate out of where their wound is. Rule 3. Sometimes, instead of a toon turning twisted via fatal injury, a toon can also twist from feeling a very long and strong negative emotion, to the point where they are overcome by it. Rule 4. Whatever emotion a toon was feeling at the time of twisting leaves an imprint on their final Twisted, leaving them trapped in it. However, sometimes a toon's injury is so severe it will leave them overcome by Ichor, then an emotionless creature that knows nothing more than violence. That's it for the rules. Let's start our designs with Boxin. Twisted Boxin is extremely boring. There's basically nothing going on. His Twisted is a bit better than Twisteds like Poppy or Tisha, but it just tells no story at all. I'm going to keep the Ichor hands coming out of his box for my redesign, because I do like features like that on my monster designs. When I first began this design, I wanted to center it around Boxin's nightmares, as I thought it would be a fun thing to work off of. This design is going to be pretty short and sweet, because he is a common and doesn't have much of a story. So let's just get straight into his lore. After Astro turned Twisted, Boxin's nightmares got worse and worse, to the point where he would do everything he could to stay awake and avoid them. Unfortunately, his efforts to keep his eyes open failed him and he passed out. His nightmares were incredibly vivid, and they turned what was only seconds of sleep into what felt like hours of Astro's trauma and the haunting images that came with twisting relived over and over again. Eventually, Boxin couldn't handle them anymore and became twisted while asleep, becoming trapped in his unconscious state and in his terrifying dreams. Some of the most common elements Astro put in Boxin's dreams physically manifested out of his head, like Twisted Astro's hat-turned mouth, a grotesque dandy head, and 2 sharp hands ready to rip apart his fellow toons. These mutations use Boxin's limp, unconscious body like a puppet in order to make his gruesome dreams come true. I'm actually quite happy with how Twisted Boxin turned out. It didn't take that long to come up with, and it's a little bit simple, but I think it gets the story across well, along with being decently creepy. I really don't have much more to say about this design because he is one of the most common Twisteds, and I wanted to make sure he wasn't too crazy looking. Now it's time for Toodles and Roger. Let's begin with Roger. Canon Twisted Roger leaves quite a lot to be desired. His design is so close to being really sweet, but it's just not there. For my redesign, I wanted to keep the same vibe and aesthetic as the original. Let's cover the story I've written for him. At the beginning of the Twisted outbreak, Roger made his main priority protecting Toodles, as he knew she was way too young to protect herself. Being a detective as well, he also spent lots of time trying to piece together the mystery of Icor, Toon Disappearances, and Twisteds. During his ambitious endeavor, he realized all of the evidence he had acquired throughout Gardenview was not nearly enough to connect anything together. Even though he knew it might be dangerous, he ventured in the deeper, abandoned floors of Gardenview, floors that Toons were never allowed in. Waving goodbye to Toodles, Roger left his toon room and headed towards the elevator. Dim, dirty, and thrown about. These abandoned rooms were all of these things, but they were also a goldmine of evidence and old Iker-related documents, just what Roger was looking for. Tons of Toon blood samples, documents, and videotapes were scattered all over this room. Roger wandered the ransacked rooms, his footsteps echoing against the dusty walls. But something was off. Roger froze. But the drum-like footsteps continued. Realizing he wasn't alone, Roger was more than ready to leave now. He bounded in the direction of the elevator, trying to keep his feet and breath as quiet as possible. After shakily running down the halls of the abandoned staff rooms, at last he reached the elevator. No, where was it? It was just there. Roger was lost. Panic washed over him. His unfamiliarity with this foreign section of Gardenview, along with the cloudy darkness that filled the whole area, sent Roger into a panic attack. But he had to persist. For Toodles. Roger stood up, gathered his artifacts, and trekked on, staying vigilant as to not get seen by it. Searching and searching and searching. Where was it? Where was it? Roger's legs were beginning to ache as he became more frantic. It felt like he was going in circles, and the deep footsteps persisted, getting louder and louder as he roamed. Roger's attempt to stay hidden ceased because of his desperation to get out, and every corner he turned seemingly showed no unsearched areas or signs of an exit. As he grew more desperate, he started making more noise. Soon, the quick footsteps and now ragged breathing was closer than ever. Behind him, he could see the red, savage eyes of his pursuer through the polluting darkness. It saw him too. The achiness in Roger's knees turned to unstable numbness. Roger threw most of his collected evidence against the scratched tile floors and tried to flee from the dark figure which was extremely close to him. His pulsing feet carried him fast, and at each sharp turn his pursuer got a bit farther away from him. Roger could outrun this thing and maybe, just maybe, make it out alive, back to Toodles. Roger was so close to losing the beast, until a dead end. Roger was mangled by it. His face was shattered, his neck was ruined, and his legs were torn to an unrecognizable state. He clutched onto his last fragments of consciousness, struggling through all of the unbearable pain and mutated ichor flooding his head. Thinking of Toodles helped keep him sane. He also tried to restrain and contain his mutation, so when he inevitably did turn completely twisted, it was harder for him to do any damage to any untwisted Toons that found him. Roger did this by using research capsules and planting his rapidly growing tentacle-like feet into the floorboard. At last, the mutation was complete, and Roger was successful in staying possessive of his thoughts. His body was detached from his control, though. I hope you guys enjoyed that tragic tale, because it will be continued in a couple of minutes. In some of my previous designs, I had the Twisted trying to restrain their mutation while they were twisted, but I kind of wanted to change it up a bit, so I made Roger try to stop his mutation before we became twisted. I feel like that little element works for his ability too. Twisted Roger is admittedly really unrealistic. I mean, I know we're talking about this game, but how does light hurt the Toons, and how does he fit in there? So when I was thinking about this design, I kind of just ignored that stuff. It doesn't really matter, I feel like, so don't be questioning the logic of my redesign in the comments, because the original has that. Thank you so much for making it this far into the video. You get a gold star. Here you go. Now back to the Toodles lore. Roger was absent from his and Toodles' safe room for around 5 hours, and Toodles began feeling scared and worried for him. Roger told Toodles where he was leaving to, but failed to notify her about the dangers that lurked down there. He didn't think a little kid like her can handle all that. Clutching her dear dog plush, brave little Toodles descended down into the bowels of Gardenview to find Roger. On her journey, she collected documents, ichor capsules, and kids' drawings, things that she thought might be useful to her dad, even though she didn't know much about his current investigation. After wandering for a bit, she found a bizarre ichor capsule. It looked different than the other one. She grabbed it carefully so it wouldn't spill. Toodles found who she was looking for all along. Thrown against the floor, Toodles dropped everything she was carrying. The sight of Roger's new, mutilated body terrified her and left her completely stunned. Roger's scorching eye beam illuminated Toodles' tear-covered face. Toodles' head was left gaping and blistered from the heat. Ichor soaked the tile floors as Toodles' head thumped against the scratched ground. Roger was completely shattered by what he had done to Toodles, even though his body didn't move to his commands anymore. He tried to cry, but his eye wasn't his to control anymore. The severity of Toodle's injury made her mutation quick and mostly painless, but every last bit of identity and sentience was entirely devoured by the mutated ichor. The brightness of Roger's light also blinded Toodles, which caused lots of crawling feelers to grow out of her head and front arms. They can feel the vibrations of Toon footsteps through the hollow floors to make up for her blindness. The animalistic nature of the ichor's mutations has bent Twisted Toodles into a permanent quadrupedal position. This has made her more agile. I've actually had this headcanon for a while that Twisted Toodles is mostly blind from Roger's eye beam. Because of her short attention span and below average distance she can spot you from. So I wanted to craft her design and story off of my little theory. To show you guys some of my design process, I thought I would show you fellas some of the references I made in Roblox Studio to help me with weird perspective. As surprising as it is, Roblox Studio actually helps me with references a lot. If I'm struggling with a perspective of a weird shape on design or something like that, I just boot up Roblox Studio, grab some random Danny's World character model, mismatch a bunch of stuff together to get the general shape of the Twisted I needed. For example, to make the weirdly shaped feelers in this model, I used a silly Mr. Squid mesh and stretched it out. I also decided to use Toodle's design to really go all out on the undead side of the ichor mutations, or just because it's fun and it makes for a pretty unsettling monster. All of the Twisted designs in this video kind of have a different vibe than some of the ones in the last video. These are a lot more zombie-like and overcome by ichor rather than hopeless emotional ones like in part 2. And I think this really shines through Toodle's design. I went this route because I wanted to try a new type of design that I hadn't done to the fullest quite yet. I had a lot of fun with these designs, but this next one was definitely the most fun to draw, with his rabid and feral nature. This story takes place right before Ash's story, which I covered in part 1. Don't worry if you're a new viewer though, it will still make sense. Garden View's recent shutdown left Dandy with tons of free time. With this free time, he rewatched his show over and over again, clinging to his time in the spotlight as long as possible. This obsession got so bad, he began isolating himself in his room, neglecting his old friends and even his dog, just to watch Dandy's World. Astro, feeling bad for Pebble, made it his job to keep him safe. Pebble's company also helped Astro bear the dreadful situation that they were put in with the abrupt closing of Garden View. One night, Astro was bored of his current surroundings, and decided to explore a strange new section of Garden View with little Pebble. Toons were banned from going down there, but the staff had all left, so no one was there to stop them. Though dusty and dull, these environments were refreshing for Astro and Pebble. They hadn't seen any new floors in forever. While Astro was looking at some peculiar papers he found on the floor, Pebble wandered off into the more industrial side of the mysterious warehouse-like rooms. Astro shot up to search for Pebble, just in case he had been hurt by whatever made the noise. Finally, he found the little guy trapped beneath a pile of pipes that had fallen on the floor from the ceiling. Some bizarre black liquid pooled out from the heap. Must have been something from the pipes. He began gently removing all the dirty ceiling pipes and dusty insulation to reveal his rocky front. The weight of the overhead plumbing and machinery split Pebble through the middle. Watching the thick ichor drip and crawl against Pebble's side nauseated Astro. He ran to try to get help, but the mutation was inevitable. By the time Dandy was called down, Pebble's new beastly figure was almost completely formed. Pebble's old body has become the head of his twisted form. His bottom half dangles from the top, kind of serving as a semi-dysfunctional lower jaw. The cracking of Pebble's rock-like exterior makes his new jaws jagged and tooth-like. A long tongue snakes out of his throat too. He uses it to help grab Toons, as his jaw doesn't do the best job of doing that. He has also grown a flexible, twisted body with strong, houndish legs, with small rock claws, which are actually his old hind legs. His new neck is long and slender, just like his tail, which has his original stone tail stuck to the end. It often drags on the ground. His mouth and throat are filled with a dense black mucus that drips out of his maw. When he is searching for Toons, he keeps his head down and his mouth shut. When he spots, or rather sniffs a target, he chases with his mouth wide open, occasionally swinging up his lower jaw to catch the Toon between his rigid teeth, sort of like this.
Really shaky right now, and this is kind of jank, but like he goes like this. He swings his jaw up like this.
I had an absolute blast designing this Twisted. When I began this design, I really wanted to amplify the rabid and savage nature that some dogs in the wild actually do possess. I also kind of wanted to keep the same shape and figure that the cannon design has, because the cannon is pretty good. A little goofy and not really scary at all, but a pretty good design. After a couple of different concepts, I ended up drawing this really uncanny and creepy one, where he was split in half, and I knew I had to go for that. I've seen a lot of people go for the Cerberus route with their Twisted Pebble redesigns, which I think is really cool, but I felt that it wouldn't quite fit the aesthetic I was going for, and we try to keep things unique on this channel. I'm a really big fan of how he turned out, and he's my favorite design I did for this video. And those are my Twisted redesigns. If you have any particular Twisteds you find underwhelming, go ahead and comment them and why you think they are dumb and stinky. I do read all of your comments, and the comments in the last video helped me to decide what Twisteds I chose to redesign for this video. Bye, fellas!